I testified at the Massachusetts Statehouse today. It was for a number of bills. One of them was to get rid of the religious exemption. While other states are passing freedom bills, Massachusetts is passing tyranny bills. The other thing I'm going to do tonight, we're going to talk about acute kidney injury versus myocarditis. I've been making the comments that there's far more acute kidney injury deaths than myocarditis, but I say it in a very specific way. There are more acute kidney injury involved deaths than myocarditis involved deaths based on the data. That doesn't mean that the myocarditis deaths aren't being categorized as cardiac arrhythmia and a number of other things. So there's a lot going on. It's just what can you prove and what is the low-hanging fruit to be able to stop these vaccines? What is the government blatantly avoiding and omitting conduct where they have a legal duty to act? So it's like, if you've heard me before, I talk about the lifeguard, right? They're the lifeguard at the pool, supposed to be watching over us. That's why we pay a health department. And yet, not only are they not watching over us, it's almost like they have their foot on our head pushing us underwater. You have to take this vaccine, get underwater. There she is. Okay, ready to go? I'm going to play the video that I just loaded. Hopefully it'll play. So I testified against all these bills for COVID tyranny. I didn't introduce, Cece, can you please introduce yourself and just say a few things about all the health freedom stuff that you do and putting together stuff like the Thrive in 25 thing down in Florida on the 28th. Just introduce yourself and say whatever you want to say.
Sure. I'm Cece Blakeman. I'm the legal liaison and the media director for the former Feds Group Freedom Foundation. And I work with a lot of the attorneys on these cases and interview victims for our big project, which talks about hospital protocol and the vaccine injured. And we're about to have a very big event, June 28th, down in West Palm Beach, Florida, with the amazing panel of professionals, including John, and victims themselves speaking out, just fighting medical tyranny and government overreach.
Thank you. I don't know if I'm professional. Let's find out. You want to see? You want to see what doesn't look professional? I got a little heated. There was a little lead in. I'm sitting in front of a row of people, and there's state senators and House members. It's a joint session. The one guy in front of me looks me in the eyes. He was great last time. Bill Driscoll, I think. Is it William Driscoll? I don't know. I forget his name. I think it's Bill Driscoll. He seems like a good guy. Looks me in the eyes. He's intently listening. The woman sitting next to him, she's like this. She's purposely and intentionally not looking at me, refusing to even acknowledge my presence. And the rudeness of these people is just unbelievable. They think they're so much better and they're so much smarter. I'm sitting here on a pile of evidence. You know, granted, she doesn't know who I am, and she doesn't know what I've done, and she hasn't read my books, and she's listening to all the propaganda that comes out of Massachusetts. But I kind of like, I had to squint to see her name. It was right in front of me. My eyes aren't as good anymore. It was Marjorie. So you'll hear me talk to Marjorie during this. All right, let's see if I can get this thing rolling.
Next we have John Beaudoin Sr., Beaudoin, and then on deck, so to speak, virtually, John Abramson. So if you're out there in the virtual land, you're up next, John Abramson. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, so there'll be no applause or outbursts of any kind, either in the pro or con. We need to get through a lot of people today. So I just ask everyone to be respectful and allow for testimony to continue to go forward. Mr. Beaudoin.
Hi, thanks for having me. I live in Medfield. Name is John Beaudoin Sr. I have a couple of books here I'm going to submit for the record. Medical examiners in Massachusetts, Janice Gravetti, Robert Welton, Julie Hall, Mindy Hall, Michelle Matthews, committed multiple federal felonies by committing fraud on death records. They said people died from COVID when they really died from blunt force trauma to the head, blunt force trauma to the torso, fentanyl overdose, and COVID vaccine. They certified a 7-year-old girl, Cassidy Baraka, as having died from COVID. 7-year-old girl right at that time died from COVID vaccine reacting in 5 minutes vomiting for 8 to 10 hours. They gave her a second one a few weeks later. What's your name, Marjorie? What's over there? I'm talking here. You got
I'm
any
going to ask you
interest?
to keep your comments going. This is your time, so
Yeah,
use it
okay. I'm
wisely.
using my time like I want to. Do you have any idea how many kids died? Thank you. So I don't know if Vargas is here, but let me tell you guys what's going to happen. You're going to have this hearing and go do what you're going to do about vaccines. People are going to testify about all the death. I have the proof. It's in here. You guys are on record. You have a duty to the people, not the stockholders of pharma. And you know what's going to happen to Vargas? He lives in Haverhill. On the corner of Primrose Street, there's Angelo the florist, my godfather. I have 500 relatives in Haverhill. The Sarasolos, Pascucci's, Ferranti's, Pappalardos, Tebow's, Paquettes, Sullivan's, Browns. He's not going to be able to walk down the street without somebody saying, hey, Vargas, did you make the bill that killed the kids? Because the truth is coming out. How much time do I have left now? There's no clock in front of me. Well, I think I sent the message. If anybody wants to talk to me privately, I'm happy to do so. Nobody in the world has more individual private information than I do on COVID death. You got MGB in Massachusetts living off of pharma, killing people around the world. You have no idea. No idea. I have all the records. Go type my name into Rumble. You see 150 podcast videos come up. Millions of people around the world know me. Nobody in Massachusetts knows me. So when you return to your districts, if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, did you support the bill that killed kids? You'll have an answer. Yeah, I did. I did support the bill that kills kids. Hope you enjoyed your drink, Marjorie. Have a good day.
Yes. Don't be sorry. That was awesome. You told Marjorie. That's powerful.
Well, yeah, I was pretty angry. I shouldn't get that way.
No, it needed to be done. I think she needed to be set straight.
Let me get into some data. If people have any questions, you can type it into the Rumble chat, and Cece's going to read it and stop me, and then we're going to answer questions or take requests. Let me go through a couple of myocarditis records just so people know what they look like. This is a 7-year-old influenza possibly causing myocarditis. So did they have myocarditis and the influenza possibly caused it? Or did they have influenza and they possibly had myocarditis? They died from ischemic encephalopathy. It was a 7-year-old male, and that was these are 24. So what I'm trying to show here is when you think you have good records in death records, you don't necessarily know what's going on here. What this would require, and it says down here, autopsy available 0. So that's a no. There was no autopsy. How come there's no autopsy on a 7-year-old male? Really? I thought it was required by law. The other thing is, this is 2024 in January. What vaccinations did he get? I guarantee you he got the COVID vaccinations.
Sure.
Did he get the flu vax? Is that why he got flu? There's a lot of questions. But when it comes to the records and what the government's doing, it's more what they're not doing than what they're doing. Everybody's trying to catch them at what they're doing. And we'll look at a 21-year-old now. What does the 21-year-old myocarditis look like? They're saying this is a COVID death. They're saying COVID caused the myocarditis that caused the cardiogenic shock that caused the brain herniation. He died from a stroke in 2024, February, at 21 years old. So he died from a stroke, and they're calling it COVID-19. Now, the COVID-19 is the last thing listed, so that means it's the UCOD, or underlying cause of death. Down here at the very bottom, you see this U071. That's the code for COVID, and the first thing listed is the UCOD. Oh, I have it up here, actually. I created a new field. So I even write the UCOD U071. I don't know. I mean, this looks suspect to me. Is there an autopsy? No. You're telling me that they're saying he died from myocarditis, cardiogenic shock, a stroke, and they're calling it a COVID-19 death with no autopsy at 21 years old. That's a crime. They're not telling the truth. This one is, I think she was 11 months old. It says age 0 because she hadn't gotten to 1 year old yet. Sudden unexpected death of an infant, culture positive for Mycoplasma pneumonia and SARS-CoV-2 positive. So they're calling it a COVID death. They're not calling it a root cause of death, but they're throwing it on the death certificate so the family can get the money for the funeral and the hospital can get the money for the COVID.
9,000, I think.
Yeah, up to 9,000. Funerals
Yeah.
cost more than 9,000, so it's 9,000 basically. Here's a 5-year-old. Coronavirus respiratory infection, acute respiratory failure. That's like, okay, COVID, respiratory failure looks like a COVID death. Other significant conditions: adenovirus, human rhinovirus, enterovirus, parainfluenza, one virus infection. So which was it? He had a cold. He had a cold of multiple viruses. I don't know if they had the lab data on these to really, or I don't even know if it's a lab test. That would require genetic testing for these various RNA viruses that he had. They're all single, every one of these, I believe, is a single strand RNA type of virus. And all you no virus people, I don't want to hear it. Viruses don't exist. Leave me alone. This is kind of what the records look like. You don't really know. You can only guess. The sudden unexpected death of an infant with a history of prematurity in the setting of adenovirus, human rhinovirus, enterovirus, SARS-CoV-2 positivity of uncertain clinical significance. The certifier, Andrew Ellen, I don't know if that's a doctor attending at time of death or a medical examiner, of uncertain clinical significance. So they're telling you it was a positive test for COVID. They don't even know if it had any significance relative to the death. But guess what? What's the underlying cause of death? The root cause of death? Oh, it's COVID. This is your pandemic. And this is conclusive proof that they blew up the numbers. They've been lying the whole time. I believe there was a disease. I believe it killed some people, but nothing like what they're saying. So here's COVID caused pneumonia and sepsis and respiratory failure. Could be a COVID death, but they're vaccinating 6-month-olds. Was this person vaccinated for COVID? Probably, because 1-year-olds generally get a lot of vaccines in the first year of life. They go through at least 2 rounds where they're getting stabbed multiple times. And one of them is the COVID vaccine. I believe that this guy was vaccinated, but who knows? The government's not going to tell us because they're hiding it from us. And here is a 5-year-old diabetic ketoacidosis, adenovirus and rhinovirus, enterovirus infection, and COVID-19. What used to be the common cold before COVID is now COVID and a super pandemic that killed a lot of people. Did it kill a lot of people or because they just write COVID on all the death records? This one's interesting. This is a myocarditis death. I know you don't see myocarditis on here, do you? It doesn't say myocarditis. It says hypertension with cardiomegaly, which is not myocarditis, and myocardial fibrosis, which is basically scarring of the myocardium. The fibrosis is what's left over after possibly myocarditis. So that the I-514 down here at the bottom, that particular code is myocarditis unspecified, and there is no code for myocardial fibrosis on its own. So the software at the CDC, Transax and Acme, it picked up the myocardial fibrosis, recognized it, and applied the code for myocarditis, I-514. Cardiomegaly is an enlarged heart. They're different things. So inflammation of the myocardium, and I'm not a doctor, and I apologize for speaking about doctor things, and if I make a mistake, somebody correct me. I think I got it right, though. So it's very different. Inflammation of the myocardium and the tissue is different from an enlarged heart. Cardiomegaly would take a longer time. The inflammation can happen pretty quickly. So that's why this one says the I-514 and I-517, which is cardiomegaly. And this is a 37-year-old in 2024. Interesting that it doesn't say COVID. And I wonder, was this person vaccinated who died from myocarditis at the age of 37? Now, I'm going to talk about some of the chapters in my book. Well, let's start with Diane. Diane was 62 years old. So you'll notice it says COVID vaccination here. So acute intracranial hemorrhage in the setting of thrombocytopenia in a person treated with COVID-19 vaccination 11 days prior to presentation. There's no code here for Y59.0. It is not coded, and the word is sitting right there very prominently. Vaccination. They're telling you this person got the vaccine. Still, we know that the vaccine causes thrombocytopenia. We know that it causes CVST, cerebral venous sinus thrombosis. It doesn't say that she had a CVST, but she probably did. If she didn't have a CVST, she could have had another type of intracranial hemorrhage. She was hemorrhaging inside her head. So this is a vaccine death. It was not coded. So this is a fraud of omission, chapter 2 of my book. Notice the date on Diane's. The date that she died is the 18th of March. Brianna was injected, I believe, on the 30th, so a couple of weeks later, in the same small state of Massachusetts. Brianna died on the 15th of April, but she had her shots a few weeks before that and reacted. I've talked to the family. I've seen the VAERS report. I've seen the 6-page report from Harvard Medical and Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital. So 6 doctors from those 2 entities jointly wrote a brief report about Brianna's case. It's called, and you can type this in your search browser and the paper will come up. The paper is called Fatal Post-COVID mRNA Vaccine-Associated Cerebral Ischemia, which means the vaccine killed her by stroke. All throughout the paper, it says that she reacted. It's several reports of COVID vaccines causing strokes. It says, while this is not a CVST where thrombocytopenia is frequent, this is an ischemic stroke, as you see right here. For 3 years, this COVID vaccination was not on here. They told the world that COVID-19 killed her by stroke. For 3 years, her father told the state, put COVID vaccine on, put COVID vaccine on, put COVID vaccine on. Even with a published report in the Neurohospitalist Journal, with 6 doctors from Harvard and Beth Israel saying the vaccine killed her through a stroke. Even with all that, for 3 years, they wouldn't put it on. They finally put it on last year. They added it, but they didn't add it to the last line, and they didn't take COVID off. They added it above COVID. So now look what the UCOD is. The underlying cause of death remains COVID. U071. How much of a lie is this? Go ahead, Cece. Sorry.
So if they add it on later, the CDC doesn't go back and recode it?
Oh, they coded it. See down here
This
on the bottom? The Y59's there. They added it.
Oh, they added the COVID vaccine down there?
Yep.
Is it 59.0?
Yep. It's down there on the bottom.
But they still have cause of death as COVID.
They still have the underlying cause of death or the root cause of death. So she was positive for COVID with no symptoms 4 months earlier because she was a school teacher and had the test. Let's read this. Cece, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19 caused the vaccine that caused the stroke, that caused the cerebral herniation. Non-traumatic, meaning she wasn't hit in the head. She had brain herniation without being hit in the head or without, falling off a roller coaster. It's crazy. I mean, they just lie with impunity and nobody says anything. I'm trying to tell the world. And here it is. 5 weeks later, 20 miles away. You ready? 17-year-old Eden. And somebody will say, she had a defect in the vasculature of her brain. If she did, she might have lived 10 or 20 years longer. But she didn't have the opportunity to live 10 or 20 years longer because the vaccine killed her. The VAERS report on Eden states she had such a bad headache that she went to the doctor, her primary care. Not like Brianna went to the emergency department. The emergency department told Brianna, we're treating COVID patients. We don't have time to treat you. Go home. They told her that twice, and she didn't recognize her sister because she was in a full-blown stroke. The people, I don't want to spend too much time on this because people have heard me talk about these for a long time, but I wanted to get them out there on the record since it's my second podcast. CVST, there it is, where thrombocytopenia is frequent, and Diane had thrombocytopenia. And that's what it said in the report about Brianna.
We've heard you talk about them, but to actually see it, in black and white is just shocking.
Amaya was 12 years old. She had a stroke too. Sudden cardiac death in a person with dilation of the frontal horns of the lateral ventricles, cerebral edema, cerebellar tonsillar, and bilateral uncal herniation. She had a brain herniation, hemorrhagic stroke. Michelle Matthews, the medical examiner. Did I sue her? I can't remember. Yeah, I think she's the named defendant. Robert Welton, Julie Hall, Mindy Hall. I think Michelle Matthews is a named defendant that I sued for the state, one of the medical examiners. I think she might have done Cassidy Baracus, the 7-year-old, and lied about that. So the vaccine's missing from here, Cece. And how do I know that she was vaccinated? Somebody filled out a VAERS report, and what they did is they copy-pasted from the death record into the VAERS report. And they didn't do the VAERS report until 6 months after death. 6 months later, they'll come out with the autopsy results. So it looks as though somebody copy-pasted from the death record into the VAERS report. cerebellar, tonsillar, and bilateral uncal herniation. Also in there, it says she had 4 vaccines at once. She had meningococcal, HPV, Tdap, and her 3rd COVID shot on August 3rd, and she died on August 29th. So I don't know when her headache started. I will stop bringing up the records, but I'll say I'm from Connecticut. I don't know if people know that. I grew up in Connecticut. I went to school in upstate New York. Moved to California for 1.5 to 2 years, and then moved to Massachusetts for the remainder of the rest of my life that I hope to get out of here and move to New Hampshire. So I have an affinity for Connecticut. I think it was a great place to grow up, especially Windsor, Connecticut. I didn't know racial issues. Didn't understand them because we had a very mixed town and we all got along, as far as I know. I mean, I'm sure there are racist people in Windsor. I didn't know them. You know, I grew up there 18 years, went to high school with, I mean, Cece, I don't know if you know the song, but the prom theme song for my high school year was the theme from Mahogany, Diana Ross.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, well, I mean, back then it was people trying to choose between Styx, Foreigner, Led Zeppelin, and
Yeah.
theme from Mahogany, and so all the white kids split. So it was like, and the one that got the most votes was theme from Mahogany. It was pretty funny. People were so mad at me. I'm like, hey man, it won. You know, we didn't do a primary. We should have done a primary. Why am I talking about this? Because hold on one second. I had to clear my throat. Sorry, everybody. Oh, and people have commented about that. Why do you clear your throat so much? It's been really bad since I was intubated. It damaged my throat. So things kind of, it never was the same. I could show a picture of what I had done when I was intubated. This is my neck.
Oh my gosh.
Those are the vertebrae in my neck right now. This white part here should be black like that. So the disc is in between the vertebrae. This bone is now solid, and this bone is now solid. So this vertebrae, and this vertebra are now one single vertebra instead of 3 vertebrae. And that's why I clear my throat a lot, because they damaged me when they put the trach tube down. And I've always had to clear my throat since then. Something's wrong. So that's why I clear my throat, everybody, because multiple people have mentioned that. Multiple people have mentioned that in the comments of other podcasts. Now back to Connecticut. Avery Autumn Zaleski was 16 years old. She was visiting her uncle in New Hampshire. She's from Connecticut, visiting her uncle in New Hampshire. When things went bad, they took her to a hospital in Massachusetts, and she died from a stroke at 16 years old in Massachusetts. 16-year-olds don't just up and die from strokes. But as I showed you, the 12-year-old, the 17-year-old, the 30-year-old, the 62-year-old, all female by chance. I mean, I could find some males, but strokes are mostly female, and I don't know why. Anyway, I'm just sad because, good looking kid and family's probably devastated. They lost their 16-year-old girl. I wonder if anybody told them it had anything to do with the vaccine. Like, I wonder what do you tell somebody? I mean, I know that the doctors are lying and telling parents, oh, I'm sure it has nothing to do with that. And the parents walk away and they tell everybody, no, it didn't have anything to do with that. The doctor said so. I would like to show the parents all these other records of strokes.
I mean, do you know the increase of strokes in kids in Massachusetts, or just in deaths in kids that age for the last couple of years?
No, because there's so few of them. But the few of them are more than zero. And the years before that, it was zero.
Yeah, I mean,
You might have one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
as a 16-year-olds, you don't hear them dying of strokes. And then
Nope.
all of a sudden we're seeing those across the country a
Oh,
lot.
yeah. Strokes are a big one. I don't know if you noticed the codes. The codes are scattered all over for stroke. There's I-63 cerebral infarction. But then if you look at the hemorrhagic strokes, they don't really have the names that I was saying, like cerebellar, tonsillar, and bilateral uncal herniation, brain herniation. The words that are used you won't find in the ICD-10 codes. You'll find intracranial and intraspinal phlebitis and thrombophlebitis. That's pretty general. That's like from your head all the way down your spine, phlebitis and phlebitis with clots. So thrombophlebitis. How many different strokes can go under that category? And that was used for Eden, for the CVST. Why doesn't it say CVST there? I mean, that's it's now common, CC. A CVST was rare. Now it's common. And it happens with other vaccines too, not just this one. So, yeah, it's bad. Now let's address the myocarditis versus acute renal failure.
What's the compliance though in Massachusetts for the vaccine?
Oh God, are you serious? So the top 5 states in the nation are Vermont, and then maybe Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. What did I miss? Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. Yeah, that's 5. So New Hampshire is the other. There's 6 New England states. New Hampshire is not in the top 6. They're not 6th. They're not 7th. They're not 8th. They're not 9th. And they're the most conservative of all the 6 New England states.
Yeah.
So the top and the rates by which they're vaccinated are far above California, far above New York. Nobody comes close to New England. Yale is in Connecticut, and that's a big kind of pharma researchy government kind of, do research place. Massachusetts is by far the center for all this government pharma research. There's no question.
Is that because of the mandates, if they have such high compliance, or is because people were just willing to go in and get it?
I think it's all of the above. I mean, I can't answer definitively, and I feel as though when I answer, I will sway people's opinions, but I guess that's what I'm here for. I'm now a podcaster. So why indeed? Liberalism, which is not liberalism anymore, it's now tyranny. It's a religion. It's not a political persuasion. They're not voting for the policies that their party puts forth. They're so in tune and indoctrinated and programmed to just vote D blue cult. That's it. I'm a moral person because I'm with the nice party. Our party, our donkey, no, our elephant red party. And they have colors like gangs. Gangs have their gang colors, and the political parties have their gang colors. Cults have their mantra that they chant. Climate change, climate change, climate change. It's just a cult. So why indeed? Why is it like that? Why are they compliant? They're crazy. They're just they've abdicated their own discernment and thinking to the government, and the government will think for them. So they're intellectually lazy, no matter how many PhDs. Everybody around me. I mean, I'm a pretty affluent town here in Medfield. Not the most affluent, the old New England money that have had money for 200-300 years. Not like that, but mostly new money here in Medfield, where people are vice presidents of pharma companies. They live here. There are people who work for the pharma companies that really believe their products are saving people. They don't even know. The very few people know the intricacies. Well, let's just say it's very esoteric. The base definition of that word, very few people know what's actually happening with these. So I don't want to disappoint people. I want to make sure that we get to myocarditis versus acute renal failure. What I've said on many podcasts is that acute renal failure is 150 times more involved deaths, excess deaths, than myocarditis. And that's true. The involvement on the death records, in the records, it's 150 times more. And nobody's talking about that. And I'm wondering why. Because it's 250,000 excess acute renal failure deaths across the United States in the COVID era, mostly since November of 2020, when the NCTAP program kicked in. I want to bring up the NCTAP program again.
I think this is important for people to understand.
All right. So I'm going to share screen.
Yes, he froze for a minute, and hopefully he'll be right back to show the myocarditis and acute renal failure, which is super important because you'll see the trend that goes up as soon as the money kicks in, which comes from hospital protocol deaths as well as jab injured. So we'll get John back here in just a minute. There he comes.
I went to share screen and it shut down my entire Zoom feed. Never had this happen before. It appears as though it's all working right now. I'm going to try to share screen again. Let's start with Veklury, which is remdesivir. You see the November 2020 date? I'm going to show you where acute renal failure took off 2 weeks after this date in multiple states. But there are more dates. So Paxlovid, which is nirmatrelvir with ritonavir, December of 2021. Picture the winter of 21-22. How bad is acute renal failure in the winter of 21-22? What else do we have? Olumiant, which is baricitinib, December of 2020, 2 months later after remdesivir. Lagrevio. Lagrevio is molnupiravir. So December of 21, you have molnupiravir and Paxlovid, December of 21. So what does kidney failure look like in the winter of 21-22? Because people go to the hospital with COVID and they get these drugs. So COVID's in the winter, so you'll see coincident with that. Let's take a look and see some of these graphs.
Do you know that they allowed pharmacists to prescribe Paxlovid? You didn't even have to be a doctor.
Really?
Yes.
No, I didn't know that. That's terrible.
Yeah, and with no patient history, anything, they were allowed to just give it out, prescribe it to people.
Wow. First, this is an ideal Gompertz function. The Gompertz function describes over time how a disease comes through a society. There's a faster ramp on the front end than there is on the back. It's a slower slope down the back end. These are not symmetrical. So you have waves, they're seasonal, right? This is idealized. Here are 3 random waves. And here is a totally different signal. People are getting vaccinated. More and more people are getting vaccinated. More and more people are getting vaccinated. Then everybody's vaccinated. So nobody was vaccinated. A bunch of people get vaccinated. And then they're all vaccinated. Or whoever's, all the ones who are going to be vaccinated are vaccinated. That's the second signal. The first one is, it's how a disease comes through a society. It doesn't come in linearly. It comes in a transmissive disease. Comes in, hits a lot of people really fast, and then it peters off because everybody's had it, right? And then maybe the next year, some people don't have immunity yet, and you have another big wave. All right, now when you add these 2 graphs, you have 2 separate and completely different signals, and you add them, you get what's on the bottom here. What's on the bottom is, you have the same signal here, but when it comes back on the other side, it's not at baseline like up here. It doesn't go back to baseline. It goes up at an angle, and then the second wave, and it goes up at an angle, and the third wave, more of an angle, and then it's steady state. This line, if you look at the return to baseline, it's the return along this diagonal line. 2 different signals, completely different. Now let's look at a real curve. This is 0 to 120, basically all ages. This is acute renal failure involved deaths, Minnesota, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. Now in Minnesota, you have a winter peak, and 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 then you have this mess. What happened? Right here is the November timeframe, 2 weeks after. This line right here, okay, November is right here. So this was up and it was coming back down. This dotted line is still acute renal failure, but it's with COVID. These people had COVID, went to the hospital, and more of them died. So the difference here, the area difference, that's with and without COVID. Oh, by the way, this gray line here on the bottom, that's the prior 4 years clipped, made the opacity lower, and pasted it here. It's what should have happened. The dotted line is what happened in totality. The black line is what happened without COVID being involved on the death record. So with COVID involvement, look at this 21-22 peak. It's crazy. It went from 2, 4, 6, this is 7. So instead of being 2, it's 7. It's more than 3 times normal at its peak. 3 times. I mean, it's insane. These numbers are very, very big. These are thousands of extra people dying, more than normal. But if you take COVID away, you have that diagonal line right here. You have a diagonal line, and then you have a sort of peak here and a really big peak here. Minnesota is following the 2 different separate signals that were the idealized ones I just showed you. Now, Massachusetts, it's a little bit bigger. So the sinusoidal nature of the signal here is a lot easier to see. You have a winter peak and a winter peak and a summer trough and a winter peak and a summer trough and a winter. I mean, this is perfect, right? But then you get to COVID. This right here is before remdesivir NCTAP program. So why is this so big? I don't know. I would like to know. There are now 5,600. There's more than that. That's up through 2024. If you add in 25, there are now more than 6,000 in Massachusetts alone, excess acute renal failure deaths. And you see here's the excess, but you see that just like I showed you. The troughs lift off in a diagonal increase, and then it levels out to a steady state at an elevation that is at about 6. So this is about 3 right here, and this is at more than 6. So we're talking 100% increase in acute renal failure involves deaths. You have one signal that's seasonal with these dotted lines, and you have the second signal that's linear to a steady state. Perfect. Connecticut's almost the same as Massachusetts, except there's a weird bump here, but it's just about the same. I mean, the states about each other, they're right next to each other, and they're 1,300 miles from Minnesota, and that's all ages. But when
When did the money kick in?
oh, sorry, I'm glad you said that, just to make it easier for people to see.
Right before the big peaks.
Yeah, so the first money kicked in with remdesivir
Mm-hmm.
right here.
And look at that big peak right after it.
Yeah, but
And
this
then
big area here, this big area here, this big area here. What's interesting is if you divide by the all-cause deaths, this signal down in Connecticut disappears because as a percentage of, you had a bunch of extra people die. They died with something. That signal disappears right here, but it doesn't in Massachusetts. It's about halfway diminished. And Massachusetts was a big trial for remdesivir. If you look at the papers and where they came out of that got remdesivir EUA approved and all that, it's all Massachusetts hospitals. I think it was Beth Israel Deaconess that ran that trial. It's all Massachusetts. Now let's go look at the Paxlovid and the molnupiravir, Lagrevio. That is right here. That's that huge wave, that enormous wave. And just so everybody understands, this is 91-day rolling averages. So that means 45 days earlier, it could have really started. It's not exact, like 45 days earlier is here, right? And when you do rolling averages, the curve might go up sooner than in actuality. But if I graphed every day without the rolling average, all you'd see is a big mess of up and down lines. It's not clean. That's when it happened. The big huge jump, and this one too over here, and that one and that one. That's based on policy. But the troughs lifting off started. It's really with the uptake of vaccine.
Yep.
Especially like Connecticut, going along normal until right here is March of 21, right? March of 21, it takes off like crazy.
You could assume the other ones are hospital protocol.
Protocol ones are in the dotted lines, and the black line here would be, I call them vaccine induced.
Yeah.
And we'll just roll through the ages a little bit here. So we're looking at 15 to 44-year-olds. Very noisy because so few people. Just to give you an idea, this number is 2 on the y-axis, and this number is 0.1. So it's 1/20th, and it's even below that because these are 15 to 44-year-olds. So, and that's why the signal's choppy. But you can certainly see a choppy signal, but when you get to that winter of 21, 22, now people have to bear in mind, the first wave of COVID was the spring of 2020. That's one. The second wave of COVID was the winter of 2021. That's 2. The winter of 21-22 is the third wave of COVID. So you have maybe a little problem, a tiny little problem here. Actually, that's March of 2020. That's before COVID. That actually happened before COVID. COVID started right around here. I'm not like John Campbell. He's a master at this. You know, you've heard of John Campbell, right, Cece?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what his PhD is in that allows him to be called doctor?
What?
Specifically, it's in his PhD is in multimedia teaching of nursing. So that's why he's so good at what he does. So there's no COVID yet. There's no COVID yet. COVID starts right here. This one here and that there, COVID didn't cause it. In Massachusetts, maybe. This huge peak it's kind of weird in Massachusetts. It was pretty big, but it happened after, and Massachusetts is right next to Connecticut. Look at Connecticut. They killed a lot of people in hospitals in this wave. And the thing to remember is it's the third wave. They survived, and then they died. They survived, died, survived, died. Yeah, I never noticed this before, but yeah, Massachusetts had a lot of people dying of acute renal failure, 15 to 44, as of January of 22. This took off, January of 22.
Money.
And we'll go through the other ages. I feel like this is getting boring. We got to talk about the myocarditis. So again, 45 to 64, no problem first wave, no problem second wave, huge third wave right here. Massachusetts does have a problem with the first wave and a little problem with the second, but the third wave is absolutely enormous. A little bit in Connecticut, a little bit in Connecticut, big third wave, and it remained elevated. So we're talking 45 to 64-year-olds. I'm still in that range, going to be 61 soon. But, 45 to 64 is not that old. And you have something that goes from zero point 0.2 people dying every day to more than 0.4. So more than doubled. That's a lot of people. That's hundreds of people a year in an age range that shouldn't be dying.
I'll tell you, that is the main age range of our victims in our database. I mean, it's only a sample of about 1,300, but it was over 55% were in that exact age range that died from acute renal failure.
It would have been a lot more older people had they not been wiped out a year or two earlier. The susceptible, I shouldn't go back and talk about my book too much, but Steve just called me the other, Steve Kirsch. Again, we went through I call it an age group paradox. People tend to look at 65 and older as an age group. And it's what they're doing is they're creating a paradox where it's really the 85 pluses versus the 65 to 74s. The 85 pluses got wiped out so bad in the first wave that they were in deficit for a year and a half. There were fewer people in that age range dying for a year and a half later because they weren't around to die twice. They were dead. And that deficit was canceled out by the 65 to 74s starting in January of 21 when they started getting vaccinated. So when the 65 to definitely 74, but even 75 all the way up to 80, when they started getting vaccinated and dying, there was no signal because the excess of that age group was canceled out by the deficit of the 85 pluses. So you really shouldn't look at 65 plus. You really need to look at multiple age groups, as I do. Let me show you. Here's 65 to 74. The third wave is absolutely enormous. But you now see that they are dying in the COVID waves, even before remdesivir was financed to 20%, but a lot more in the second and the third round. I mean, when Paxlovid and molnupiravir were approved, everybody's so focused on remdesivir. Look at the difference between these waves. This huge 2021, 2022 wave, and I don't know what it was, Cece. I can't tell people definitively. Everybody wants an answer. Nobody's going to have an answer unless the government does an investigation of the individual medical files. You do a forensic investigation and find out what were their blood labs, what were their vital signs every hour, blood labs every day, imaging. Go through their medical files. You'll find out what killed them. You'll find, and it won't be COVID. It'll be they took this drug, their creatinine levels went bad, their glomerular function went bad, and they died involving acute renal failure. Oh, well, COVID caused that. We had to give them the drugs. No, you didn't have to give them the drugs. You gave them the drugs to make the money. When the money kicked in right here, for the drugs, you killed them. That's it.
Yeah, because why didn't the rest of us have COVID at home have acute renal failure that didn't take the drugs? It's kind of just common sense. And then the pharmacist, it says it right here, can prescribe Paxlovid to individuals 12 years and up according to the emergency use authorization. A pharmacist. So you're getting it in a hospital and a pharmacist and the incentive to use it. But COVID didn't cause anybody that I know acute renal failure that stayed at home and took ivermectin hydroxychloroquine.
No, I don't believe that.
It's so frustrating.
If it did, it's 1/100th. It's like myocarditis. It's like stroke. It's like pulmonary embolism. The clots that were caused by COVID were very few, but it did happen. Clots caused by the vaccine were very many. It was about 100 times more than the disease itself. Let me plow through here. We're an hour in, and I still haven't talked about the main theme of the night. And oh, by the way, if you're listening, I don't know how many people or how few people are out there right now. If you want me to bring a guest on to have an interview or a discussion about these things, throw the names in there. I know a lot of people, and I'm going to start inviting people on to have chats. I'm going to have a different kind of interview format than you might be used to. We're going to have chats. We're just going to talk, and people can listen. And I'm going to try to draw out of very technical people terms that everybody can understand. I'm going to try to be a liaison to everybody because I don't understand what Kevin McKernan's talking about half the time. He's way over my head all the time. So if I can get these people to bring it down and we can relate it to regular people, I think that we could have good interviews. So put in whatever you want, and here we go. Let's get through this. Now we're getting into the older ages, and you see the waves are getting more distinct, especially in Massachusetts. What's interesting about Minnesota is there's only that blip right here that's different from without COVID. So with COVID in the dots, without COVID in the black, and you have this diagonal line, it seems like these people might have been wiped out ahead of time, and now it's just the vaccine, because the COVID signal or the COVID involved drug COVID protocol signal seems to not be there in Minnesota. But in Massachusetts it is. And in Connecticut, it's kind of wacky. There's a very small difference between COVID and non-COVID acute renal failure. It's pronounced in Massachusetts. They're right next to each other. They should be the same. They are the same from September of 21. From September of 21, Massachusetts and Connecticut look the same, right? But before that, yeah, you could say these bumps look the same, but it's less than half. Because we're not just talking about the height. When you look at these graphs, the number of people who died are the area under the curve. So you have the girth or the width of each wave matters a lot, not just the height. So the area of this is about 3 times that, right? And the area of this is about 2 times that one in Connecticut. Now let's look at the 85 plus. There's almost no difference in Minnesota, almost no difference. So these acute renal failure deaths, most of them, except for right here, didn't have anything to do with COVID. That's all vaccine. Yeah. In Massachusetts, a lot of these people died with it. It's hard to have an answer for all these graphs. They are what they are. This is Florida. Oh, this is where I get the idealized graphs. I wanted it to look like Florida. So I made them look, and they do look exactly like Florida. If you look at these bumps, okay, 3 bumps, and then you have this diagonal line, you get this diagonal line and this steady state after. So this combination looks exactly like Florida. It's not by accident. There's definitely 2 signals. The epidemiological methods that they use, they're not going to find this stuff. These are just simple waveforms. You know, that's how I think. I'm much better at the time domain, but Adam Dung at MIT, he's getting his PhD. He's working on, I asked him to do a frequency domain analysis. It's something we do in engineering, especially electrical engineering, to find signals. And he's got a good method that he put together. Hopefully we'll get the paper out. He'll get the paper out soon. All right. So remember I said 250,000. This is not including this number here, 237,352. This is the United States acute renal failure deaths. That's what it looks like. 2020 up a little bit. Was that November, December? Maybe it was a little earlier in the year. I mean, a lot of people died. A lot of old people, really, really old people died with acute renal failure. Pneumonia and renal failure go together. Heart problems and pneumonia and renal failure go together. It's all connected. And the 237,000 is without 2025. So when I say 250K, I mean it, because January through May have to be added to this. So it's 250 by now. And we can talk. If you just look at the codes, N17, acute renal failure versus I51.4 and I40 and I41, those are also myocarditis. Add them up, add all 3 of them up, and what you'll get is acute renal failure is 150 times more in excess than myocarditis. That doesn't mean that what's manifesting in the human body when people die is 150 times more. It isn't, I'll tell you right now. The reason is they don't diagnose myocarditis at death very much. And what did I want to show you? These are deaths that contain I514. If I514 is in this TRX rec axis CD, right? This is a concatenation of all the causes. You see there's 20. Cause category, well, that's this is the UCOD. Remember we talked about that? You'll see like this is category 1, 2, 3. I514 has to be on any one of these. You'll see it's here, I514, here, way over here. This is actually the root cause of death in these. But this last field is a concatenation. So when I do a search with this over here on the right, I'm searching for any instance of I514 on any record. And so these all came up. So these are all the 2024 deaths, all of them. It says 25 minus this age type. So it's really 24. So it's only 24 people. I already told you, is excess 5,600, probably more than 6,000 now, of acute renal failure in Massachusetts. I514, it's for this year 2024 is only 24 people of all ages. Now, you know that they say it's happening in young male athletes. Let's go through here. We have a 7-year-old male, okay, young male. We have an 81-year-old male, not a young male athlete. We have a 72-year-old female, not a young male athlete. We have a 21-year-old male. Okay, there's two. You got a 7-year-old male, 21-year-old male. And you have a 54 female, 69 male, 85 male, 73 male. Do you get the picture?
Yeah, I only see three that could, or maybe four that could make it.
32, 39, 41. Maybe the 32 you say is a young male athlete. Maybe the 32. You have a 37 here, but you really only have the 21-year-old is the
Right.
only one out of the 24 there that fits in that category. So why are they saying young male athletes? I don't get it. I don't understand why they're diminishing this category in the minds of the public. And what I've shown is there are 10 times more myocarditis involved deaths than myocarditis involved deaths in young male athletes. You're putting three qualifiers, reducing it in the minds of the people with three different qualifiers, reducing a percentage, reducing a percentage, reducing a percentage, and now you're down 3 orders of magnitude less than acute renal failure instead of 2 orders of magnitude less than acute renal failure. It's 1,500 times less than acute renal failure if you add the qualifiers young male athletes. We're in a war for the minds of the people. And if people on our side don't understand strategy and are not strategic in trying to win that war, they're planting in the minds of the public the rarity of something that really isn't that rare. And they're not talking about something that is frequent and common. They're spending all their time talking about something that's rare and making it even rarer, sound even rarer than it is. I hope that makes sense to everybody.
So people will think, well, I don't know that's happened to anybody. So they think it's rare, but it's going to make a story because it's a young male athlete.
Now, let's add in the term cardiac arrhythmia. That's I-49, cardiac arrhythmia. Cardiac arrhythmia is something they throw on a death record when they kind of sometimes don't know what it is, or they find something in the heart where they say, oh, it's an arrhythmia problem. Or if they had a doctor's report with some information, it's done. 1,616. It says 17, but it's counting the header column, or the header row. So 1,616 arrhythmia deaths. The average age is 69. The minimum is 3, and the max is 107. Who wants to find the 107-year-old who died of cardiac arrhythmia? That's really got me wondering. Is a 100-year-old. The point I'm trying to make is that many of these may have died from myocarditis. We don't know. They didn't do a lot of autopsies. They don't do autopsies on 86-year-olds who die in the old folks' homes. They just don't. So this system I created, it helps me look things up because it's more organized. So this guy, 15-year-old male, B-cell lymphoblastic leukemia for 4 years, and it's 2024, so he had it before COVID. Distributive shock for 2 days, electrolyte immunogens. I've never heard that. Immunogens. I think they spelled it wrong. Arrhythmia. Now, we understand why he died of arrhythmia. He had B-cell lymphoblastic leukemia, and it wasn't from the vaccine because it was before the vaccine. So, I get kind of upset when I see that through in his young life. There's a lot of this.
Childhood vaccines, though.
I tend to think that he probably got it from a vaccine, but I'm not going to get into it. It's not an argument to have. Again, arrhythmia, I think I proved my point. 1,616. You don't know that the excess in arrhythmia, of which there were in 21 and 22 alone, 400 in Massachusetts alone. 400 excess cardiac arrhythmia deaths in Massachusetts. Half of those 400 could have been myocarditis, or all of them could have been myocarditis. So I'm not saying myocarditis doesn't happen. I'm saying the low-hanging fruit of investigation in epidemiology of death records, it's 150 times more of acute renal failure, sudden kidney failure, acute kidney injury. It all means the same thing. It's just so easy. It's so obvious right in front of everybody's faces. I don't correct people who follow me who say there's more acute renal failure deaths than there are myocarditis deaths, because I don't know that. I'm saying by the data, it's a low-hanging fruit, easy signal to look at. And also the renal failure could be a result of the cardiac problems. You don't know that either because they're connected. One could cause the other, or the other could cause one. So there's that. There's cardiac arrest, which really means nothing but the heart stopped. When they do the studies and people cite the studies and say cardiac involved deaths is the biggest cause of death, it's the biggest thing, you don't know that because they're including cardiac arrest in that category. All the scientists in the world could tell me I'm wrong, but I know I'm right. Cardiac arrest doesn't mean that heart is bad. It just means your heart stopped, and that happens with every death. So if you die from pneumonia, the last thing that happens before you die is cardiopulmonary arrest. It's on the death record.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything was wrong with your heart. And if you look at Massachusetts, 70% of all cardiac involved deaths are cardiopulmonary arrest, which means 70% of the deaths attributed to cardiac causes might not have anything to do with the heart. And so all of the data, all the statistics for the last 30 or 40 years, it's probably all wrong. They're categorizing cardiac arrest as a heart problem, and it isn't. Again, I do believe that myocarditis is much more prevalent in reality in the human body as it manifests than the data shows. And so I'm not saying it's not a problem. The other thing is, we're not done counting them, Cece. We're not done counting dead people.
Right.
It's going to go on for 40 years. And 40 years from now, they won't make that attribution. They won't say, oh, the vaccine caused this. Some people are going to die 20 years earlier at 60 instead of 80. Many people are going to die at 50 instead of 75. They're going to lose 25 years of life. And you saw the myocardial fibrosis that I showed you that was categorized as myocarditis, because the myocarditis happens, it gets inflamed, and then the cells die, and then you get the scar tissue in the myocardium. The scar tissue is the myocardial fibrosis, and it's less elastic. You've decreased the performance of your heart. You can't run as far as fast. Most people don't know that because they don't run and time themselves. But if an elite athlete, or even if it's not an elite, I keep saying elite athlete, because they know. Like when I go to the gym, I know what I can lift with every part of my body. I know my limitations because I test out my body in the gym all the time. So I know my limitations. Other people don't, and they'll try to lift something and they'll hurt themselves because they don't know how much it weighs and they're not used to lifting it. And so I'm not going to go lift something I know I can't lift, because I know with all my back problems, something's going to go wrong. With your heart, you can't stress your heart more than your heart can take. And if you've scarred your heart and it's less elastic, you might hit a performance level that your heart can't take anymore and you drop dead, or you just can't do it. You can't run. And again, I'm going to get away from the elite people, right? So if you were just an average runner like me, and you could run like 6-minute mile, and I can't do that anymore. I'm not saying I can do that.
That's pretty good.
Well, I was running a 6-minute mile when I was in my 40s, but it's no big deal. But let's say I could run an 8-minute mile, right now. And then I get myocarditis. Maybe I'm running an 8:30 and I can never get to that 8 again. I just can't do it because the performance of your heart has been decreased. So you've got mean time between failure. It's an engineering term. Like when you buy a disk drive, there's a mean time between failure of 800,000 hours. There's a number, like when's the average time before it fails. Mean time, your MTBF of your heart is decreased by the vaccine, and that's myocarditis generally. So it's a big problem. So everybody out there, get off my back. Stop telling me, oh, you say that it's nothing. It's not saying it's nothing. I'm saying the messaging from the purported leaders of our movement, they have to do better because they're failing. It's not a winning strategy to talk about the same thing all the time that nobody knows about. Not nobody, but they do know about it. They know that, I forget the guy's name on the bills, myocarditis. No, the vaccine did it. He died right there. They revived him. He's lucky he's alive. And it probably involved myocarditis and arrhythmia and a few other things they write on death certificates, but he's not dead. He's alive. And they'll never tell us what it was. But it's not just a professional athlete on a play in a moment when he has to hit peak performance. It's 80-year-olds, it's 70-year-olds, it's females, it's males, it's 60-year-olds, 50s, 40s, 30s. It's everybody. It's not young male athletes. That is total BS. The other thing is, sometimes people will die before myocarditis presents itself. An older person like Ethel was in Vermont. Ethel was 98 years old. She got the shot. Her heart rate went to 145 beats per minute at 98 years old. She died in 2 days from a heart attack. And no, her death record did not say a vaccine did that. But I got the VAERS record correlated. There's only one 98-year-old female who died in Vermont on the same day as the death record for Ethel. I got the right person. And it said she got vaccinated. Her heart rate went to 145 beats per minute. She had a heart attack. Pretty much done. If anybody has any questions, I'd like to get to them. Probably not a lot of people tonight.
Well, there's a couple comments. Pittsburgh Mom said, thank you for your book, that she really likes it. And I recommend it too. COVID Facts for Regular People. Anyone else comparing death records with VAERS reports?
I don't know if a lot of people have death records.
Like in our government. I mean, they should be comparing those.
Oh, the government, no.
Seems like the first thing you should do.
They don't even need to do that. They have the immunization information system. They can look up somebody's vaccine, just correlate the IAS to the death records. I said this on a call. Probably shouldn't say this. Now, I was on a call with a few people and I said, this is what you have to do. And at the end of the call, the guy said, am I the first one to think of this. I just started laughing. I'm like, you got to be kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I just told you about it 45 minutes ago on my call. But yeah, you compare those two databases and it's over. This is not difficult. If everybody got together and stopped talking about research papers and confidence intervals and p-values and stupid Pfizer papers and all that stuff, forget about all that. Forget about all of it. The government has the information on their databases. They can answer the question in less than a week on the safety of the COVID vaccines. It's not hard. They have it all. And everybody's wasting their time saying, we should do this, we should do that. No, the government should just do their job that they're supposed to do with the data that they currently have. And their omission of conduct is criminal. And we're just sitting here letting them get away with it because we got scientists talking about confidence intervals and p-values. And we got people talking about Pfizer papers from 4.5 years ago for studies that were absolutely corrupted, where they're hoping that the criminal is going to hand you over the evidence of their crime. The population of the United States had over 1 billion vaccines, 1 billion. And we have over 200 million people who were vaccinated with COVID, for COVID. The 200 million people, we have records of all their vaccines. We have records of their deaths. We have records of their hospital visits. We have records of their Medicare and Medicaid payments. It's all in the government servers.
They don't want us to know.
They don't want us to know. Nope.
That's
All right, I can see the chat now. It's Joe. Hi, Joe. Gary. Oh, I didn't scroll down. Ah, Michelle's there.
well, I hope you speak about this at the event about messaging. I think that's where our side is failing miserably. They seem to have theirs down, their little slogans, safe and effective, and you know, all that stuff. And we're kind of all over the place with some people talking about myocarditis and some people talking about ACE2 receptors and peer-reviewed papers. And, you know, we need to hone it in and get our messaging correct. And I think that's what you're so good at, besides all the data, which, you know, from an engineer's perspective, takes in all the variables instead of just ones the epidemiologists and the doctors do, which is so important. That's the only way we get the big picture, and we can actually, regular people can see it on the graphs and understand it. Even me, that's not good in math. I can see the peaks and valleys and the big bars that go up way high. So
I hate the data, but you know, it's eye candy for a lot of people. I don't understand a lot of the stuff that the scientists show. I mean, I understand it, but I don't understand the significance of it.
It's not working.
People don't understand that they're applying a normal distribution to everything they do. They're applying it's a bell curve. That's what a normal distribution is. So Michelle wrote something here I want to read. What's interesting about Brianna's doctor's medical report, fatal post-COVID mRNA vaccine-associated cerebral ischemia, is that there are now 89 similar articles. And she's absolutely right. And you know, it might be interesting if I bring Aaron Hertzberg on. I wonder if he would come on a podcast with me. He hasn't done much lately. He's down in New York. We've worked on the death records quite a bit together. He put together case reports, and a lot of them, like a whole database full of case reports. So what I say in my methodology, top-down investigation, bottom-up quantification, is that you can't determine causality until you do a forensic investigation of individual medical files. And these case reports are just that. They're doctors looking through the medical files of a decedent and determining cause and writing up the case report to say what their conclusions are. Now, in order to get them published, a lot of them have to lie, like they did on Brianna's report. They lied and said, it's extremely rare. That's what the conclusion said. Throughout the report, it's like several reports, a number of reports, frequent, but then they get to the bottom and it says, oh, it's extremely rare. BS. But from the case reports, you have a lot more information to determine causality, far better than any of these scientific studies where they have these cohorts and they have confounding variables within the studies, and they have especially the meta-analysis studies. You're taking multiple studies and making a single study out of the multiple studies with multiple confounding variables, all of which, if they line up because of some type of user bias, imagine if there's a user bias, there's some type of bias inherent within a type of study, and it has an error rate. And then you have multiple studies, and they look at the multiple studies. They're multiplying the errors through the studies. It's just, to me, it's crazy. They're worthless.
Not only is the government criminal and not comparing, you know, the death records with the vaccine injuries and not telling us the truth, they're committing medical fraud by what they're putting on the records themselves. I mean,
absolutely.
It's straight up fraud.
Do you know the answer to this, CC? What's the length of time you can add? Oh, you can't add to VAERS. Well, if you do, it won't be shown. Once you enter a report, you can't update it. But I think, if I remember right, I think you can update it, but it just doesn't get shown. And can anyone in the family do it? Yes. Yeah, no, anybody, I think anybody can fill out a VAERS report, I believe.
They make it difficult. It's kind of confusing, but we have some people that have really mastered it, like Julie Threet. She's good at VAERS.
Yeah.
And then there's other reporting systems like Albert Benavides, Welcome to Eagles, Frontline X. He's got what is it, Open VAERS, or what is his?
Oh, he has VAERS Aware.
VAERS Aware, yeah.
Yeah, Open VAERS is good, and VAERS Aware is good. I think differently. Ask Michelle. I think differently. And so when things are easy for other people, like you create a user interface for a program, I get confused.
No, I've been around you long enough. I know you think differently.
Like, well, that's not clearly defined. What if they really mean this? So if I click this button and there's this corner case, I'm like, I don't want to click that button. And I get all confused. It's like, I'd rather read the code than read some big button they're telling me to push. I think they're trying to screw with me. Anyway, yeah, so I think other people find Open VAERS and VAERS Aware very helpful. For me to do my searches, Albert turned me on to Med Alerts or Medi Alerts.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's Medi or Meta Alerts.
I think it's Meta.
Yeah, that works great for me because I can take nice screenshots from that instead of having to scroll through VAERS. And what I was doing with VAERS was I was downloading the database and I was creating the template like I do for the death records. You know, that template that I showed for all the death records? I was doing that for VAERS because it's a lot easier to read than a row of a whole bunch of information. And when I did Med Alerts, I can just do a screen capture. Boom, done. All on one screen. So that's what I used.
Do you know the easiest thing to read for the regular people is your book, and it'll lay it out for you where you don't even have to look at graphs, and there's some graphs in there and stuff. But, you know, if you want to know what's going on, which I would think you would, since they're killing your fellow Americans and we're in a war, then you will take a few minutes of your day and learn what's going on and accept it that you've been lied to. Otherwise, they're going to keep killing people. And whether it's affected you or not yet, it still very well could. And they're going to keep on with these shots if we don't get people involved.
Thank you, Cece. I always forget to plug my own book. I put together on my website, it's called the Bonanza Bundle. And what you get with the Bonanza Bundle for $50 is not only these two books. So these two books it's $40 for the two for the ebooks, $55 if you want to have them shipped to you. I took this one off as an individual sale because it made no sense. It was $90 for the book, but you could buy both for $55. So you now can't buy this independently. You have to buy both. But for the ebooks, instead of $40, I made it $50. You not only get these two ebooks, you also get a 500-page document on acute renal failure, a 400-page document on a lot of cardiac stuff and venous and arterial death causes, a lot of graphs, 900 pages of graphs of various causes of death with a deep dive into acute kidney injury. It also has a document for a top-down investigation, bottom-up quantification. It also has the Connecticut Memoranda Series Volume 1 that was served to the Attorney General, Governor, and Health Commissioner of Connecticut. Those are all Connecticut renal failure deaths. Connecticut Memoranda Series Volume 2, which has about 100 vaccine deaths in Connecticut named. People are all named. There's more evidence in that, about 1,800 pages in that bundle. For $50, is 1,800 pages of hard evidence, conclusive evidence of vaccine harm, and then persuasive evidence of graphical excess that is in alignment with what people actually died from when they died the day of vaccination and the day after and 2 days after. Cover letter, it's one page and it explains the other 9. And what that is it's a document package that's going to people in the FDA, HHS, and then I have a whole list of other people I have to get it to. Michelle, I'll get it done. Maybe tomorrow, but I have to get the email addresses, and I would like a better email than I sent out to 2 people. I rushed it, so I didn't get the email I wanted to get out there. Thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully we'll do more of these in the future, and I'll get my act together a little bit better, and we'll do it with more notice, and I'll get some people to interview, and wee'll see what happens. Hey, Cece, thanks for coming and managing the show.
Sitting here just like reading chat. Yeah, it's always interesting to listen to you. Appreciate all your hard work.
I'm going to finish with my testimony, and people can say how angry.
I've seen you like that before. It's not fun.
And we will end after this. Thank you, everybody.
Next, we have John Beaudoin Sr., Beaudoin, and then on deck, so to speak, virtually, John Abramson. So if you're out there in the virtual lands, you're up next, John Abramson. Before we get started, I just want to make sure, so there'll be no applause or outbursts of any kind, either in the pro or con. We need to get through a lot of people today. So I just ask everyone to be respectful and allow for testimony to continue to go forward. Mr. Beaudoin.
Hi, thanks for having me. I live in Medfield. Name is John Beaudoin Sr. I have a couple of books here I'm going to submit for the record. Medical examiners in Massachusetts, Janice Gravetti, Robert Welton, Julie Hall, Mindy Hall, Michelle Matthews, committed multiple federal felonies by committing fraud on death records. They said people died from COVID when they really died from blunt force trauma to the head, blunt force trauma to the torso, fentanyl overdose, and COVID vaccine. They certified a 7-year-old girl, Cassidy Baraka, as having died from COVID. 7-year-old girl right at that time died from COVID vaccine reacting in 5 minutes, vomiting for 8 to 10 hours. They gave her a second one a few weeks later. What's your name, Marjorie? What's over there? I'm talking here. You got any interest?
Keep your comments going. This is your time. So
Yeah, okay. I'm using my time like I want to. Do you have any idea how many kids died? Thank you. So I don't know if Vargas is here, but let me tell you guys what's going to happen. You know, you're going to have this hearing and go do what you're going to do about vaccines. People are going to testify about all the deaths. I have the proof. It's in here. You guys are on record. You have a duty to the people, not the stockholders of pharma. And you know what's going to happen to Vargas? He lives in Haverhill. On the corner of Primrose Street is Angelo the florist, my godfather. I have 500 relatives in Haverhill. The Sarasolos, Pascucci's, Ferranti's, Pappalardos, Tebow's, Paquettes, Sullivan's, Browns. He's not going to be able to walk down the street without somebody saying, "Hey, Vargas, did you make the bill that killed the kids?" Because the truth is coming out. How much time do I have left now? There's no clock in front of me. Well, I think I sent the message. If anybody wants to talk to me privately, I'm happy to do so. Nobody in the world has more individual private information than I do on COVID death. You got MGB in Massachusetts living off of pharma, killing people around the world. You have no idea. No idea. I have all the records. Go type my name into Rumble. You see 150 podcast videos come up. Millions of people around the world know me. Nobody in Massachusetts knows me. So when you return to your districts, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, did you support the bill to kill kids?" You'll have an answer. Yeah, I did. I did support the bill that kills kids. Hope you enjoyed your drink, Marjorie. Have a good day. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for showing up.
That needs to go viral.
I hope it does. Yeah. I thought it was worse than it is. I mean, I'm happy with how it came out. I didn't say half of what I wanted to say.
What's over there, Marjorie?
What are you looking at over there? I'm right
What's
here.
over there? I'm over here.
No, one thing is the last time I talked to Uncle Angie, he said, "You see these medals behind me? These World War II medals behind him on the wall." I think one of his kids put him, or grandkids put him in a box, one of those glass cases, and put him on the wall behind his desk. "These don't mean nothing to me." He basically said, I can't think of his exact words. "People don't care about this. You know what they care about? When I walk down the street, the politicians know me because I paid them all off." Oh, I'm sorry, because I donated to their campaigns. Yeah. Okay, Uncle Angie, you donated to their campaigns. Yeah, the politicians like you because you paid them all off. That's the way it goes. It was appropriate for what was happening in that room, and I didn't get to say that about Uncle Angie. That's my last memory of Uncle Angie. And he was like, I was almost 6'2". I'm only 6 feet now. You saw my neck. I mean, all my discs are collapsing. I've fractured, I have 3 broken vertebrae, collapsed. I broke my pelvis in 6 places. I broke my hip. I've had surgery on L4, L5. So I'm almost 2 inches shorter. I'm 6 feet. Uncle Angie was like 5'4", 5'5".
These people need to be called out.
Yeah.
Just exactly like you did. If more people would show up to their town halls, their county commissioners, wherever, and just speak the truth. I mean, it's up to us now. I mean, we know they're committing fraud. We know we're being lied to, that we know there's a propaganda campaign. I mean, we have to be the ones to speak the truth and save our country and our people. And it's just,
And World War II was very different. I mean, people talk about it now as if it was all a fake and it was all a ruse. And it's like, no, you're twisting history. It was bad.
they're rewriting history.
Yeah, they're rewriting history. So the funny thing, I mean, a real funny story. Uncle Angie was like 18 or 19. He was supposed to be guarding a bridge in Italy. He was behind the lines. And a general came over the bridge in a Jeep. He's like, stops, looks around, can't find anybody. Who the fuck's supposed to be guarding this goddamn bridge? Uncle Angie wakes up. He was napping. Wakes up, goes, me, General, sir.
Oh my God.
You son of a bitch. Started yelling and screaming at him. And from that day on, my uncle hated George Patton. Hated General Patton. That was General Patton yelling at him. General Patton came over the bridge. Who's supposed to be guarding this bridge? Uncle Angie's like, me, General. he he dressed him down, and I'm sure that was after Patton was yelling at the shell shock victim. If you remember, I don't know if you know that. So the news was there when there's a guy in a hospital with shell shock, right? He's mentally disabled from being in war. And Patton starts yelling at him, you get out of there, you get back. And the press just ate Patton alive. And there was a lot of publicity damage done by that. After that, that's why my uncle's lucky, because Patton probably didn't want to have to go through that again.
Right.
But anyway, he's like, Rommel would have kicked his ass if Hitler hadn't pulled him back from Africa. I'm like, yeah, I know, but why do you hate Patton so much? Because he yelled at him. He was sleeping on duty.
Yeah.
A lot of fun stories. But thanks everybody for coming. I'm going to end the whole stream now. I don't even know how to do that. I think I just hit. How do I? I think I have to end the Zoom call for the stream to end, right?
I think so. We'll see y'all
All right.
next time.
Take care, CC. Bye, everybody.
Bye.